Greetings! Welcome to another Xerocraft tutorial with David Olson. Today I will be teaching you all how to use Blender. Blender is a 3D modeling program. The way you get it is go to blender.org. You'll see the most current version is right here. They update often, refer back often. This is the button you press to go to their download page, and you choose whatever platform you're using. I'm a Windows user, so go to the installer. If you have 32-bit or 64-bit, click on that version, and it will ask you to save it. You download it, run the download, and it will install the latest version of Blender. When you go to update it, you just do the same thing, and it will update your program, so you don't have to uninstall it and reinstall it. It automatically updates. So right now the current version is 2.73a, but they have another one coming out here soon, so more to come for that. Like I say, check back every month or so. They always are updating their program, so it's faster, better, new features, bug fixes, just to make it always better. So once that is downloaded, here's the icon for it. And here's your introduction splash screen. So, this is the scene that you're always introduced with when you start a new file. The things that you're looking at here, this is your cube that always starts up. This right here is your camera. And this is a light source. So let's first go over some of the basic controls that you'll need to know. Over here on the left, we have them named out for you. There's translate, or move, selected items, and the shortcut key for that is G. Now, I imagine that if you have a Mac, it'll also show the shortcut right there. So I'm going to press the G button, and it moves it along. I can freely move this wherever I would like to move it. And the way that you select, like yes, I want it to be right there, is left click. Let's say you're moving it and thought, oh wait, I don't want to actually move it there. I'm going to right click, sort of undo that mode. There's rotate. Shortcut for that is R. Press the R button, and I can now rotate it around. And then right click to undo. Control Z is also your other undo function. And then the last one here is scale, or S. So this just makes the object bigger or smaller. So press S, makes it bigger. If I go inward, it makes it smaller. Now, this also has a fun feature as a little bit of an advanced modeling technique. If I moved this around, and let's say I wanted it to follow the X, Y, and Z coordinates, which if you don't know, that's what these green, or red, green, and blue lines are. This is the X axis, which is the red one. The Y axis is the green. The blue is the Z axis. If you want to think of this as a real world form, green is forwards and backwards, red is side to side, and blue is up and down. So that's how you think of things in a 3D environment. And the way I just did what I did is if I hit the G button to move it around, and I also press the Y button, so I'm not holding these down or anything, I just press the simple button and let it go. It's now following along the Y-axis. Or if I now press the X button, it's following along the X-axis. Now don't hold it down or it'll do some funky things, so just once is enough. If I press Z, it'll stay along the X-axis. Likewise, if I rotate, if I hit the X button, it'll rotate along the X-axis, or along the Y-axis, or along the X-axis. And with scaling, I can scale along the x-axis, the y-axis, or the z-axis. So those are the basic controls that apply in just about everything you can do in this program. There's moving, rotating, and scaling. Now the way that you select is by right-clicking. So just hover your cursor over the object and right-click it. Like I said, this is your camera, so this is what the camera is actually going to look at when you're rendering a picture. The way that you get into that is with the number pad on your keyboard, 0. And that'll snap you into what the camera is looking at. So you can still select things, but you're at the camera's perspective. Now, some of the other controls, there's your mouse, which I highly recommend you get a mouse with a scroll wheel so that you can scroll up and down, zoom in and out. And if you have a scroll wheel with a middle click button, if you click, you pan around your object. When I say right click is select, but also if you hold down right click, that is also kind of like a shortcut move feature. And when you let it go, nothing happens, so it's waiting for you to left click to select it. So it's just like G, it's just another way you can do it. The left click button, all it does in this mode, in object mode, is puts this 3D cursor wherever your cursor is. Now all that is just a reference point, and also when you're creating objects, that is where it's going to pop up, which I'll now demonstrate. Shift A will bring up this little window. It's where you can add models and things to your scene. You can add meshes, so plane, cube, circle, UV sphere, icosphere, cylinder, cone, torus, or a monkey head. There's also Bezier curves. If you're familiar with vector mapping software, you can also add these curves to your scene. A little more difficult to work with in a 3D environment, but still possible. Surfaces, which is another Bezier curve feature, except you can actually make them solid objects. Metaball, which the only way really to describe that is just to create one. It's two objects that kind of stick to each other when they are close to each other. Kind of like dewdrop or water drops. When they get close, they kind of suction and become one. There's also text that you can add to the scene. Armature, if you're working with like an actual human figure or a creature and you want to add bones to animate with, that's what armature is. Speaker, if you're adding sound to your scene, if you want to add another camera or another light source. And force field is working with physics. And group instance is just if you have a bunch of these together as a group. Empty is just a reference point. It's not an actual object, it's more of something you would use to help animate a scene. So they all have their use, but for the purposes of an intro, I'm not going to go into them a whole lot. Alright, so the next thing that you need to know for modeling things in Blender is how to model. So right now, like I said before, we're in object mode. Now we would like to go to what is known as edit mode. You can get to that by selecting edit mode, or you can press the tab button. Now what it brings up is a highlighted area. Now if you would like to learn another hotkey, there's the A hotkey. which is select and deselect all. When it's yellow, they're all selected. When it's all dark like that, nothing selected. Now, when you right-click a vertice, it lights up. That's how you know you select it. Also, these arrows appear. When you deselect it, there are no arrows. Now, if you want to select multiple, you hold down the Shift button, and you select multiple vertices. Now, that is what these are called, vertices, or vertex in the singular tense. There is a line connecting them, which is called an edge. And the big gray space is known as a face. Now, the way that you can select these is these options down here. So this is the vertex select. Shift click for multiple nodes, control click contracts selection, or contract selection. Anyways. So you can either hold down Shift to select them, or Control if you want to mass select along an area. So that's how you select vertices. This one is just selecting edges. And this one, faces. They have the little graphic there. There's the dot, there's the edge, and there's the box. So you know, vertex, edge, face. For face, these dots appear, which are the center origin points of the face. Now, let's get to using some of those controls that I showed you before. There's moving around. There's rotating. And there's scaling. So now I can create sort of a pyramid look here. And if you like to center on an object, let's say you've been moving it around and you're not exactly centered. If you want to center on that particular object, on your keypad, the period button, and it will center on whatever you have selected. So it'll make panning around it much, much easier. And you can do that in edit mode, like if you want to center on that one vertice right there. It works the same way. So, as you can see, the translate, rotate, and scale, or the move, rotate, and scale features work the same way as they did in object mode. One of the other tools that you'll be using a lot is called loop, cut, and slide, or the shortcut for there is Control R. Make sure if you ever forget what a shortcut is, just hover over it and it'll have a shortcut assigned to it most of the time. If it doesn't, then just use the button. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to hold down Control R, and you see a purple line appears. Now, depending on what edge you're hovering this over is where the line will appear. So if I put it up on this edge or on this edge, you see the purple line is moving. Now I'm just going to do it right here just to show you. I want to left click. Now you see a yellow line appears, and now it's following your cursor, but only within this space. It wants you to assign, okay, where do you want to put the line? So let's just say right there. Or if you want it right smack in the middle, do what you did before, click, and then without moving your mouse, click again, and now it's smack in the middle of that segment. And now from here, we can move it around, so it's kind of like doing a little hula dance. Okay. We can rotate it, rotate along the z-axis, get some spiral stuff going on there, and scale it. Now, if you would like to add more cuts, when you do the Control R and you get this purple line appearing, here's where the scroll button of your mouse comes in handy. If you scroll up, you can add more line segments and scroll down to decrease them. the lowest you can go is 1. So, and if you look down here, it'll tell you the number of cuts. So let's say I wanted 3. So there, it just made 3 cuts. Now, when you're modeling something, you'll notice that doing this now looks a little bit different than the way I was doing it before. It's because it's now being constricted by new segments within this model. So if I added line segments here and here, and I selected these, which I did by holding down the Alt button and clicking this edge, it selects all of the vertices within that path. So if I clicked on this edge, it'll select all of the ones on this path. And if you'd like to see what's behind this, like if you want to go into sort of X-ray mode, that's what this is right here. It's the view, or you see shortcut Z. So if I press Z, I am now in X-ray mode, or wireframe mode, as it's also called. Anyways, back to what I was saying before. Alt, right click. If I scale that, you'll see that these are not moving like they were before, because I have new vertices in place. So now I've created, something that looks like sort of a chess piece or a obelisk sort of thing. Now, here's another tool that's really handy. It's called Extrude. Now, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to do the E button. So let's say I select this face and I hit the E button. I am stretching out a new segment from that original spot. I can go up, or I can even go inwards, and then scale that down so it's got more shape to it. So now it's kind of looking like a torch of some sort. And if I extrude that again, scale that, there's no limit to what you can do. You can keep it going, scale. I can extrude out from here and scale that down. Maybe I want to extrude right there. So extruding is just pulling out and stretching the object. Alright? So those are basic tools. There are more individual ones where you can extrude a region. I'm going to extrude that region, which is essentially doing the same as I just did. Or I can extrude individuals, where it extrudes just the faces. And this best works when you're in the select face mode. Alright, so those are some of the basic tools that can get you started to creating pretty much anything you want. And really go ahead and let your imagination fly like crazy as far as what you think you can make, because this is a very, very useful, powerful program and is beautiful. Alright, some other hotkeys to teach you on. This little window right here can be toggled with the T button. There's also another window that you'll find useful along here, which is the N button. Or you can just hit that plus sign. So what you got right here, when you create an object, you have its location in space. So if you turn that up, you can move the object. Turn that up, you can rotate it. So if you want to be more numbers, like I want this exactly at 1, I want that exactly at 2, and that exactly at 3, then that's how you can do it. But if you want it more just eyeball freehand, then you can just move it around like this. And likewise, if you want a specific rotation or a specific scaling, then you can do that from here. You'll notice that scale is at 1. 1 is what normal is, or this is what it's supposed to be. Actually, normal is your best definition of that. You see, it has dimensions, 2. Now, this is just Blender's default unit of measurement. So when I scale it, I want you to keep your eyes on where it says scale. It's going up, and so is the dimensions. So the dimensions is the actual real world size, and scale is just showing it's almost 2 times more, or 2 times bigger than normal. So think of this as just percentage, and this is the actual size of the object. If you would like to change how you view the units of measurement, let's look at our window over here. So right now we're on the camera, which is render settings. So if you want to take a video or whatnot, these are all the settings. The resolution of your picture. If you want motion blur, what the shading is like, where it's going to be saved to. If you want it as a PNG or a JPEG, or what kind of movie format. There's a lot of different versions. If you want black and white, RGB, RGBA. Compression. So a lot of different options here, a lot to be looking at. Also the frame rate, you can go up to 60 or down to less than 24, or you can put in your own custom one. I've found that 30 is a good one for animation, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The quality of your resolution. Anyways, unit of measurement. I'm going to go to this right here, the scene tab, and I have units. Right now it's on none. That's just Blender's default. I can go to metric, so everything will be done in meters, centimeters, millimeters in the metric system. And you'll see that it's being reflected as meters, which for some reason is also the same as Blender's unit of measurement, except in metric it actually says meters. So there you go, Blender actually follows the metric system. Good to know. Imperial is inches, feet, what us Americans use, and which I am comfortable using myself. So that is how you change the units of measurement. So if I wanted this box to be 2 feet wide, 1 foot tall, 1 foot tall, and 1 foot wide, you'll see that it just got a lot smaller because now it's following a real world size. Whereas before, this was about 6.5 feet tall. That's just the size that it is. But if I wanted a real world size, then I would be looking at dimensions here. But now you see that the scaling is off. So it says this is not normal. If I would like to call this the new normal, here's how I would do that. I would use the hotkey shortcut Control A. So hold down the Control button and press A, and this will show up. So apply whatever is here as the normal. So I would like to apply the scale. And now you see that it's now all 1. The dimensions have not changed, but this is now being read as normal. This is the size it's supposed to be. So if you're doing 3D printing with this is especially important. You need to make sure this all reads out at 1. These can be whatever size you need them to be, but these need to be 1. And that's how you get them to be normal. So let's talk about the colors for a minute. I want to jump over to the Materials tab, and from here we can color this up to be something different. Okay, so we got this object here, and I would like to edit the color, because right now it's just a default gray. Now, this right here is the Materials tab. Now, the way that we add color to this is we click New, and it will bring up color options. Just a quick rundown of what you've got to work with here. There's a lot of buttons, there's a lot of settings, but the ones you primarily need to know is diffuse. Diffuse is just the base color. Right now it's on a grayish white. Now you can use this color wheel up here to decide, oh, I want it green, or I want it blue. You know, just an eyeball, yeah, that color is good. Or if you're more into RGB, like specific colors, then you can edit the red, the green, and the blue value. Now turned all the way up is pure white. Turned all the way down is pure black. So you have a lot of different options to choose from. Now also it has HSV and hex if you do colors that way. It's up to you. It's your call. I go with RGB just because that's what I'm familiar with. Anyways, so kind of put it at this nice purple color. The intensity is like how intense that color is actually showing up. So this is 100% that color. 0% is black. Just like how we put all these at 0, this is sort of the same thing. It's just the intensity of that color. The specularity is this little sunspot glare right there. Now, this is not reflection, it's not a mirror, it's simply the color that light is given when it's hit by a light source. So, if I make it red, you see that's now a red tint. Typically, they stay white, but again, this is your own creativity working here, and you can turn that up as well. Shading. This is light emission. So right now this is a light source by turning up emission. The others have their uses, but again, this is a basic overview. Transparency. If we turn the alpha down, we make it transparent. And ray trace is the same thing, but if we turn index of refraction up, then we're making this like it's like a gem. It's got refracting light going on. So that's what IOR is. It's index of refraction. Alright, then just turn that off to disable that setting. Now here is the mirror setting. Now when we check it, you see that nothing happens. That's because its reflectivity is at 0. So if we turn that up, now we're creating a mirror surface. If you put it at pure 1, then it's reflecting everything. But if you turn it down, then it's keeping the diffuse color as part of it. And likewise with this, you can change the reflective color of the mirror. Typically it's just set at 1 because that's what standard mirrors are. And you can turn up the depth for how cloudy it looks. Can't really see a good example there, but anyways, that's what mirror is. And subsurface scattering is adding a realistic shading to an object. To give an example of that, let's zoom in the camera a little bit closer. Oh, doing what I'm doing now. Hit Shift F, and then you get to go into video game sort of mode, where you've got this way of looking around with your mouse. And I'm using the ASDW keys right now. You're using A to go left, D to go right, S to go back, W to go down, Q, or rather S to go back, Q to go down, E to go up. So this way I can position my camera kind of in a floating way. This is how I can set my camera a little more freely. Anyways, so going back to what I was showing you before, separate surface scattering. If I rendered that, it's going to add some more layers to my scene. And since this is just such a simple scene, you may not be able to tell right away, but it just adds a more realistic shading to your object. Otherwise, it's just meh, blah. Very, very basic render. Alright, so that is the Materials tab. One last thing before I finish up the tutorial, I like to show you the different engines that this has to work with, and that's accessed up here. Blender Render is the basic rendering system, like the way we just made that picture. That's what you need to be under to do that. Blender Game is if you're going to be doing like video game kind of stuff, like you want this to jump, attack, and you got hit points and scores, and this is the game engine that you'd be using. And you got your physics tabs, and you have a logic editor where you can set controls for keyboard and mouse. Again, all of these things very cool, but way too much to go into for an intro. But Cycles Render is the baby of Blender. I love Cycles. It's realistic rendering. So the way that the Materials tab works in this one, it uses nodes, so it's a little bit different than what you saw before. So it still has diffuse, but if we render that, it looks like the object is still the same. Let me give you a better example here in a minute. Okay, so I set up just a little simple scene to give an example of what Cycles rendering is like. So I created a plane right here, and I created 3 cubes. So what I'm going to do is set different material settings to these so they get the realistic look. Anyways, for diffuse, I'll give this one a reddish box. And you'll see that this didn't actually change to a red. It's because in Cycles, the color under settings and viewport color, that's what controls the actual viewport view. But this is the color it's actually going to appear as in a render. A little bit different, but you get used to it. Alright, for this one, I'm going to go to a different material type. Right now it's on diffuse. I'm going to do glass. I want to set the index of refraction a little bit higher, just for the fun of it. Maybe make this green. I want to be making sort of an emerald look to it. Now I'll add a modifier, which is bevel. Whoa, too much. This just adds an edge, just like beveling a piece of wood. You're cornering off all the sides. That's how this tool works. And for this one, I'm going to go to the materials again. I'll make this one glossy. So that's going to be a mirror shader. Okay, so if I go into, I want to go into render view, which, like pressing Z, you go in and out of solid and wireframe. I'm going to hold down Shift Z, and that sends me into render view. So you can see the realism is much better than the one that we were trying with the Blender render. In fact, if we switch to this, nothing shows up because it's not working under the same options. But you see all the refraction within this green gem here. It looks like how the gem actually refracts light. And you got this one right here that's working as a mirror, and this one is just a simple red cube. But also, the exciting thing is you see the shading of the shadows, the further it goes away from the light source, the more blurred and expanded out the shadows get. This is the realism that I'm talking about. So it's not just a flat shadow. There's actually a dispersion of light. So if you're going for realism with your images, I infinitely recommend Cycles. Anyways, so that's pretty much what you need to get you started. I hope this was informative, and we'll see you all later. Keep hacking.